This is Ewan Williams, Director of Careers and Employability, and you are listening to the Academy's Developing Practice podcast.
Hello, in this episode we chat with Iwan about his new role as the Head of Careers and Employability at the University of Liverpool and the vision he has to develop the service over the coming years. We hope you enjoy. Iwan, we're really pleased to be speaking with you today about your new role as Head of Careers and Employability at the University of Liverpool. And I would like to talk to you about the vision that you're going to be developing for the service over the coming years. But before we get started, and we do this with all of our guests, we'd love to hear a little bit about you and your background and how you arrived at the position that you're in today.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Thanks for inviting me on. Hello, Alex, as well. It's a real pleasure to talk to you it's an early stage in my journey, really, as Director of Careers and Employability. I suppose my history, I've been working in employability in this kind of area for the last 20 years. That makes me sound very old, doesn't it? But I suppose my story started, I grew up in a little town in Herefordshire. I came to Liverpool University, basically because I love John Barnes. I love football. I'm one of those classic stories of I made my key life decisions on something as frivolous as the football team I supported and my favourite player, which I think probably a lot of people still make career decisions on things like that as well. So it's not too bad. But I came to Liverpool, graduated from psychology in 2003, and have stayed in Liverpool since. And other than a couple of years where I worked in a tannery in Garston, making leather, which was my first job outside of uni, I then moved and worked for the local authority kind of careers provider, which was called Connections, now called Career Connect, still exists in a different guise. And within there, I spent 10 years working across a number of roles. As a contact worker, I would be out doing a lot of community outreach in lots of different parts of the inner city of Liverpool. Moved into careers advice in a traditional careers advisor, sitting in a school in a little box room somewhere, speaking to students and asking them what they want to do and helping them sort of with college applications and things like that. And then about 6 or 7 years ago, I got a job at Hope University as a careers advisor there. And after only 12 months there, I moved to Liverpool as a careers advisor. And in the last 6 years, I've moved from a careers advisor to sort of becoming a team manager, I suppose, overseeing part of our embedded employability, our drive to try and increase and introduce that approach. And then obviously 6 months ago, I've had the chance to pick up the role of director. So it's been a bit in and around the sector for a long time, but there's lots of different steps, lots of different things that have happened. Each role is different, bringing a different set of demands, and it's been exciting and it's been really interesting.
No, it sounds you've had a really interesting journey. I remember Connections quite well. I remember for some reason, one of those things where the branding sort of stuck with me. I remember it really well. It was around the city that I grew up in as well. And then that seemed to, did it lose funding? It seemed to die away. And it was, I think, for a city which I live in, I think it was actually a real big problem for the youth of this area to have that service just be, it wasn't mothballed, but it was shrunk, I think, probably due to austerity. Is that one of the things you saw in your time there?
It is. I mean, you're right. The branding, they got it so spot on. It was purple and orange.
Yeah, that was it.
Connections with the lines going across it. I think everybody recognised it because it was a shop front in a lot of big towns and cities. It was a shop front that designed to sort of walk in and access support for a whole range of issues, from that careers guidance, career support. But also we used to work with people around issues such as homelessness and substance misuse, all of the issues that young people face. We were kind of a multi-agency referral provider. And it was a really solid grounding for someone like me to work, to get to know the city, to understand the kind of challenges that the city face, that young people within the city face. You know, it was challenging at times, and you did come across some really quite disturbing stories and things are upsetting, but you were also able to make a difference. And it was a massive shame, obviously part of the austerity political agenda, go down that particular rabbit hole perhaps, but funding for those kind of services was withdrawn at quite a rapid rate. And as a result, those services kind of disappeared. And it would be lovely at some point if they were to come back, because I do think they make an absolutely huge difference for people in need, young people in a position of need, to say, I can just walk in and get the support, or at least speak to someone who can help refer me on to someone who can support me as well. So I'd like to see them come back at some point.
Yeah, so would I. They've definitely made a big difference, particularly in those, those cities, those poorer areas of that we've got in the country across like the Northwest and West Midlands. I think it made a big difference for those people.
Yeah, it did. And, I think there are still support services out there available, but yeah, it'd be great to see something come back.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And it's obvious to see how you've built on that career to the stage that you're at today. And as we said earlier, just before Christmas, you took up your new role as Director of Careers and Employability at the University of Liverpool. And we really like to talk to people when they're starting off on a new kind of leadership role, to talk to them about their kind of plans and maybe their philosophy. So let's start with your kind of philosophy for leadership. What kind of leader are you, and what kind of style do you think you'll lead with?
Yeah, I always think probably asking the team what they think of me would almost be quite an interesting kind of 360 on this conversation as well. I suppose the other thing I'd say before I say qualifying this week, I always think when you talk about careers, it's often a safe space for really big cliches to come out. I think, like, there is places where you end up talking in cliches a lot. I think careers often brings that out, journeys and career ladders and all the rest of it. And I'm going to kick off with one straight away, which does sound like the biggest cliche I've ever said. But I think as a leader, I think it's really important to sort of be really authentic and genuine and try to be yourself as much as you can. One of the things that I spent a lot of time working, thinking, well, I'll never be a leader because I don't have, say, some of the qualities that other people in leadership I would see. Oh, look, they're brilliant at a number of different things. Maybe they were really on top of data and details and very, very organized and things like that. And I never kind of identified to being that kind of person. I thought, well, maybe I bring other things, but because I don't have those kind of qualities, maybe leadership isn't something I'll ever, management isn't something I'll ever get into. But over the last 5 years, and through the faith that's been placed in me, particularly by my predecessor, Emma Moore, as well, I sort of worth mentioning her. I know she's been on one of these podcasts in the past as well. The faith that she put in me to say, actually, I don't need you to be that. What I want you to is to bring what you already bring, but I'd like you to bring that into a leadership area, I think was really important. That was something that was really important for me to learn that and to then develop the confidence from that. So I think as a leader, whatever your strengths, whatever your kind of your foibles and your flaws potentially, I think it's really important that if you go into a leadership position trying to be something else than what you are, it's a really, really difficult character to maintain. So you've got to keep hold of some of that authenticity in everything you do as a leader. And what you've got to then hope is that the strengths or the qualities you've got, you're able to bring them back in a positive way for the rest of the team. I suppose the things that are important to me about being a leader, and again, I hope the team would agree that I bring some of these with me, but some of the really important qualities, I suppose, I try to focus every morning. I wake up and think, this is what I need to bring. Number one is to be friendly and approachable. I know that's, again, a bit cliche, but it's really important that I'm not aloof, that the team feel they can approach me for anything, and that I will be proactive with that as well. I'll go out and I'll speak to the team as much as I can, so they know that I'm around, they feel comfortable talking. I think that's really important. Another side of it is, I think, to maintain that enthusiasm, that energy for the job and for the sector that you work in. I think you want to kind of demonstrate that, and you want to bring that with you. It's, as a leader, if there's a sense that you don't bring that it makes it easy for others to then maybe not bring that either if they're not seeing it in you. So that proactivity, that enthusiasm is really, really important. I try to be, I don't know if front-footed is the right word, and I don't always get this right, to be honest, but I try to be as strategic in my thinking as I can be. So I try to think about, where do we need to go? Where are the gaps going to emerge? Where do the gaps currently exist? Where do I think that they might begin to emerge in the future? And how can I position the team and the way we construct our offer to be able to adapt and fill those gaps later on? Again, I don't always get that right. There's times where I thought that something's going to happen and it hasn't, or something has happened and it's been a bit unexpected. So you don't always get that right. But I think as a leader, you always need to be almost probably living a year, 2, 3, 4, 5 years into the future to try and see where you think things might go. And I suppose the last thing, which is really important to me is about communication, about being a good communicator and being comfortable talking to your team, to your close colleagues, to people external to the team, within the university or external to that. That's really important for one reason, a number of reasons, but the first one is to be able to articulate what you want from the team to do. I kind of have this idea you need to show clearly what good looks like. And good can be lots of different things. And there might be more than one way to achieve something. And there might be lots of versions of good. But whatever my version of good, or whatever my version of how I'd like the team to grow and deliver the services, that needs to be really clear in how the team understand what I want, because it helps them filter those conversations that they have in their work life. But for example, something that's important to me is around the development of experiences and giving opportunities for experience for our students. So the team know that. And so when they're having conversations with colleagues across the university, they know that anything that's going to provide that's probably going to land well with me and land well with how we're going to construct the offering. So that communication piece is important. And of course, the other thing is being the voice piece of the team is something that I want to do. I want to talk positively about the work they do. They're a brilliant, high-performing team. I'm very lucky to have them. And being able to walk around and show off about how great they are is a really nice part of the job. But again, really, really critically important that I continue to do that.
Fantastic. So just drawing out from what you've said there, you want to be an authentic leader, you want to be approachable, you want to be strategic, you want to be a really good communicator. I mean, we talked before we started recording about how busy life is and how, we've all got really, really busy weeks. Is there anything that you do to kind of recalibrate in terms of those key strands that you want to ensure that your leadership is built on? Because I think often we start off with really good intentions, don't we? And then just with the busyness, we kind of get swayed, don't we, in terms of how we do things. Is there anything that you have built in where you just recalibrate and reset and go, no, these are my key values and this is how I want to lead? Or is it too early for you, seeing you've just taken up your role?
Yeah, I still feel like in some ways I'm still figuring that out. I suppose one of the things is I try to have, I don't know how it sounds, I try to have a number of outlets for myself, really. So I play football as part of the university, working at the university. One of the great things is there's a really active football kind of scene. And so there's games every day almost. I don't get to play every day, of course, but I try to at least once a week have a game of football, which, number one, the exercise and all that kind of stuff's great. But football also takes me out of the team. I'm not, I'm able to just be relaxed and be with other people from the university. It's a great networking tool as well, actually. I mean, I've got to know people as well. So that's been a really nice thing for a personal level to do. The other thing I try to do from a work perspective is I'm quite relationships focused. I don't know if this is a good thing or makes my life more difficult at times, but I'm really focused on having positive relationships. So the use of one-to-ones and the use of allocating time and marking out time, particularly for my management team, particularly for people that I'm working with more closely and other people in the team, as and when needed. I try my best to always have that time and put it into the calendar and say, we're going to talk. Sometimes I end up moving those meetings, which isn't ideal, but I really want people to know that if I say I'm going to meet and we're going to talk about something goes into the diary to say, yeah, we're going to talk about it here. And I try to be really precious with preserving that time. How I cope with that as things probably get busier and things change and I learn and adapt and change within the role as well. I hope to be able to preserve that because I feel it's important. I feel like not doing that is a step away from becoming a bit distant from the team, and I don't want to do that. I want to try and retain that closeness and understanding what they're all doing, and hope that they feel that too.
Just coming back to your point around authenticity, I'm not sure if it is a cliche. A lot of people want authenticity from their leaders, from the people I speak with. And I'm just going to throw you back to a football, I'll use the cliches now. So if I think about football, you mentioned John Barnes earlier. He was a great leader on the pitch. But from my memory of John Barnes, as he became that leader on the pitch and he started getting into the later years of his career, maybe that creativity that we saw in the early John Barnes wasn't there as much. Do you think there's a comparability between being a leader and being one of the team, like in a university or even in a business sense? Do you think you have to drop something to be that authentic leader?
Yeah, it's a really interesting point. I think I suppose you want that to be part of an evolution, in terms of, again, it's that bringing that kind of authenticity throughout my entire career, the bits that got me to where I'm at now. It would be crazy to almost, I suppose, to throw away some of those elements, because that's partly why I enjoy the job. It's what I try and bring in. And so I wouldn't want to move too far away from that. But at the same time, my responsibilities are different now. It's not on me. And again, I think this is part of that leadership conversation, is it's not on me to have all the answers a lot of the time. I might need to make a decision on it. I should be making decisions on things. But actually, it's okay for me to say, here's a problem. I think this is kind of, or not a problem, a challenge. That's another way of framing it. Here's a challenge I think we face. 2 years ago, I'd be thinking, right, how can I solve this? And then coming back to people to talk about what my ideas are. Instead, now what I need to do is be able to talk to others and empower others to come up with those solutions themselves. And I'm really blessed with the team that we've got in Careers, which is a naturally innovative, high energy, proactive team that they're often there already. And actually, I've sometimes got too many solutions because everyone's kind of got a different approach to things. So I suppose that evolution for me needs to be less of, I am solving the problems in every single level of detail, to more, I'm trying to facilitate others to have the confidence if they need it, or the backing if they need that, or providing some of the direction around how there's often a seed of a really brilliant idea, but there might be context that someone's unaware of, so you can then help provide that context and empower that person to then bring that to you. So it's almost like, does it make it sound like my job's easier now because I don't have to deal with it as much in that sense as I did, because I've got such a fantastic team around me? But the responsibility now sits on me around, well, ultimately it sits on my shoulders in terms of what we do and how we do it. So hopefully that's an evolution, but you're right, it is a different role, and I do need to change in some ways.
Yeah, and I think what you mentioned earlier about being strategic in your thinking, I think that's part of that evolution, I guess. I'd like to ask you what are your plans for the careers and employability services as you go forward. What do you see happening maybe in the market, but how are you going to respond to those things? But I guess what you're already hinting at is that your team probably already have the answers, and it's your responsibility, you feel, to draw them out, almost that sort of coaching culture style of leading.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. It's the one thing that I bring, or have to bring now within my role, is understanding which of the solutions are the right solutions and which of the ideas are the ones that we pursue, because actually we've got lots of ideas, and everybody's got a different, I suppose, view of what a careers team could go off and do. There's no end. Careers employability is everywhere and everything, in my opinion. It's part of every conversation. We are, as a team, we are uniquely placed with so many fingers in so many different pies across the institution and outside, that there's no end of opportunity for us to get involved. It's that knowing when to step back, when to step forward, what to allocate resource in terms of time and effort into developing. That's sometimes the trickiest bit. And I suppose that, again, is where I can try and still maintain a little element of creativity, I suppose, or innovation, is trying to piece together all these different exciting pieces of a jigsaw puzzle and then bringing them together into something that's coherent, because it needs to be coherent for the team to understand. It needs to be coherent for our university colleagues to understand what we do, but it vitally needs to be important. It needs to be understood by our students in terms of what we do and how we do it. There will be impressions of what the careers team does, and some of those will largely be correct, but I'd also quite like to challenge some of those as well. I'd like us to become something that has a wide and far-reaching impact across the entire student body. We're not just, if you need your CV checked, which is another cliche around careers work, to be honest.
That's fantastic. It's so lovely to hear you speak so positively about your team. And I have to say, one of the parts of my role is to lead some of the fellowships, the learning and teaching fellowships and awards across the university. And over the last 4.5 years, as I've been at the university, huge amounts of the applications for those awards and fellowships are related to your team and the work that your team are doing, either individually or with the academics across the institution, really innovative pieces of work that are taking place. So it's so lovely to hear you speak so positively about them. I wanted to ask you a question around kind of where you see the kind of careers, service and graduate jobs going in the future. One of the roles that I hold outside the university is as a school governor. And we've very much in the last couple of years, kind of post-COVID, moved away from the idea of, right, kids, are you going to be a doctor or a lawyer? What are you going to do? And the head teacher has driven this. He's all about find what you're passionate about. And actually, the job that you're going to do might not even exist now, whilst you're at high school. So let's develop that sense of passion and excitement and really support you to explore that through our careers offer at high school level. So I just wondered, in terms of, we are hearing that COVID has and will continue to reshape the job market in the future. So where do you see the future roles for our graduates, and how is your department responding to that as well?
Yes, it's so interesting. The future of work has been, it's almost another career cliche, really. We've been talking about it ever since I've been in the sector. It's always been jobs that don't exist, jobs that are going to fail to exist, and all the rest of it. And it's true, it's just like anything, it evolves and it changes as we all move forward as a society. I think that there's a number of exciting opportunities available for our students, and I think that we shouldn't be scared of the changes, the introduction of AI, ChatGPT, and all of these kind of technological changes that are coming. COVID has kind of, in my opinion, accelerated perhaps a hybrid working model, where maybe we would have seen this kind of more flexible approach to being tied to a desk, as it were. I think we would have moved towards that anyway, because I think the market would have demanded it in terms of retaining the top talent, and other companies would have led the way. So I think we've probably accelerated 10 years, 2 years, COVID as a result of that. I think we might start to see things like the 4-day week becoming more used. I think that'd be interesting. But for me, it's almost the knock-on impact of those changes. So the increased flexibility, a 4-day week, that gives us, in theory, more leisure time. So we're not using, the time on a commute is now less. So we now have more time to either dedicate to work or, ideally, of course, dedicated to leisure time. So that's going to drive a whole new area of the economy where people have got maybe resource and time to be able to access different things. So there's all these sorts of changes that could come about. It's impossible to say where we're going to go. I was reading an article the other day, which was about innovation, the fear that can sometimes come with it. And it mentioned in the article about the invention of the wheel being perceived at that time for that society as being quite a bit of a threat. What if your job involved carrying things and the wheel is now suddenly going to come on and you don't need 5 people to carry this. We can just do it on a cart now. Now we've got a wheel. Whereas actually that was one approach to the invention of the wheel. The other one was, think of all the new industries that are spinning out as a result of the wheel, pottery, turn, and things like that. So for every innovation, yes, there might be some changes to the labour market demands and some roles, some tasks within roles. It might not be an entire role. It might be the tasks within that role change. But we're an inventive, innovative species, and we will find new ways and new opportunities will emerge from this. So whilst I feel it's almost impossible to predict what things are going to look like, and of course that drive to those technical skills is going to be really important for our students to develop, something that will hold true, in my opinion, is that the skills around human interaction, around working together, dare I say soft skills, no one likes the phrase soft skills, workplace skills, transferable skills, whatever we want to call those kind of that collection of skills, are, in my opinion, the investment that we all need to make for the safeguarding of our future careers. Because if we're good at communicating complex things to people who don't understand that detail in the same way, if we are someone that can work collaboratively well with others, if we're someone that has a natural or different approach to problem solving, but also the development of expertise and sort of research techniques and things like that, there'll always be a need for people to be ahead of the game and think what's next. There's no guarantee that AI will do that for us or anything like that. So those very personable qualities, it is a cliche in careers to talk about them, but I think that they're the investment that we can make for our own future. Anything that we do with our students right now that encourages that and enables that process to happen is something that's good. And what we need to do, I think, collectively, particularly in the careers team, but collectively as well, is help our students understand that this isn't just, that there are some skills that are seen as quite sort of transactional. I learn it, I'm good at it, I put on my CV, that's brilliant. There are other things that you pick up along the way and you're not really aware that you're picking them up, a group task in a module or something like that. We really need to emphasize that is a skill, that is an experience, that is more than just getting through that particular module and getting to the end of the module. It's actually something that's really important. And if you speak to any employers, they all say the same thing. this is what they recruit to. One of the things around, graduate schemes and things like that is the non-linear routes, the kind of careers that are not connected to where your own subject area. A lot of the big graduate recruiters don't ask for a specific degree discipline because they don't really mind. They just want the right person to come in and fill that role. So it all points back to this idea of if you're personable, if you have the right set of skills and you focus on developing those skills and the chance you have while you're at university, for example, these are the things that will stand you in good stead for the future, whatever it holds.
Yeah, that's a wonderful answer, and I have to say I agree with everything you've said. There's that quote, isn't there, about, and I can't remember who said this, but it was about we can recruit for the culture that we need, we can give them the skills later, and I think that's still very much the case, isn't it, in industry and business, without a shadow of a doubt. Alex mentioned earlier, she hinted earlier about some of the work that your team have been doing with academics in terms of that agenda around sort of being, I don't know, career ready. Is that the right approach, the right term? I don't know. And obviously the employability agenda is embedded within our own university's curriculum framework. We've had a couple of people from your team on the podcast before giving us some wonderful examples, but do you have any more examples of how your team have been collaborating with the academics to ensure that students are prepared for the world of work?
Yeah, there's so many. And I tell you, this is actually a challenge within my role now. So in my previous role, I was very involved in the delivery of the embedded work. And it was always quite difficult, even in that role where I was kind of trying to, build a relationship to help that happen. Whereas now I think one of the challenges of being a director is I'm now even further removed from some of that. And this brilliant work's happening, but it's sometimes to keep on top of it because there's so much of it and it's all happening across the piece. So this is, a note to self really around keeping on top of things like that, because this is the stuff that matters. The examples that come off the top of my head. First, I was invited by Gemma Ahern in sociology to an alternative dissertation module. SOCI 347, I think, is the module code for this. So she created an alternative kind of dissertation module where you didn't have to write a long dissertation. You could actually produce like a digital submission instead. We collaborated with Gemma on that module. And I went to the first couple of hours of the presentations, and I can only describe it as wonderful. It was brilliant. I was really sad to have to go to another meeting after a couple of hours because the students were producing either podcasts, recorded conversations about topics around sustainability and all these different areas. There were videos, there were just live presentations. They got to choose how they wanted to present a research topic and all of the factors that they wanted to include in it. Now, it was just wonderful from an academic perspective. For me, it felt robust. Now, I'm not an academic, so I'm not qualified to say that I know. But to me, it felt like a really engaging way to bring about some research topics, and allow, and it kind of replicated perhaps a workplace environment. You don't write an essay very much in many jobs, do you? But you might be asked to have a conversation like this one now, for example, talking about your ideas and what your thoughts and views are on things. So for me, that's a really authentic assessment. It's a different way of asking students to present knowledge and understanding. And I thought that was wonderful. So that was brilliant. Another example, this one leads to us at Pilkington last year, not this year, but last year, I think, in environmental science, ENVS 111, I think is the module code, Dom from our team, Professor Rick Williams as well. And it was around the SDGs, the UN Sustainability Goals, development goals. And the students had to work collaboratively as a group of 4 or 5, and then they produce a digital story around whatever the sustainability goal in question was. And again, it was a similar concept in that I think it was a first year module. So it was enabling students to talk, to share, to get to know each other in the first year. So I think it's important to note that careers in employability is not just about making our students careers ready. I think that's a good phrase, Matt, by the way, saying careers ready. I think that's certainly one way to look at this. But I think that we contribute to the wider student experience. What we do is not just, let's get your CV ready. What we want to do is create active, experiential opportunities for our students. So making friends is an important employability skill. It doesn't seem like it at the time, but it really is. So that experience of working together in your first year to then curate a digital kind of submission was really, really great. So it was a similar example, but different in a number of ways too. I suppose other examples would be in HLS, Life 223. I'm good at remembering the module code so far, so this is good. The taking what was an extracurricular careers activity, a life sciences employability week, and connecting it into the curriculum. So one of the challenges we face, I suppose, is that we can set up an unlimited number of extracurricular activities for our students. But what the challenge with that is we'll never engage with all of the students because not all of the students will be able to for a whole host of reasons. Maybe they miss it, maybe it's lack of confidence, maybe it's an accessibility issue, maybe it's carrying responsibilities at home, maybe need financial. It's all of these reasons. Extracurricular is brilliant, but it'll never get to the kind of coverage that we needed to or wanted to have the impact we want. So what we did, the Royal, the team, not me, but the team did was they took this employability week that was happening anyway with strong engagement, but they took the employers that were working within the week and developed an assessment into the curriculum that was all around commercial development and commercial awareness, and the assessment was conducted through a video interviewing process. So you've got employers from an extracurricular experience into the curriculum, you're asking them to develop commercial awareness, which is obviously a really important skill, and then you're giving them practice of video interview techniques. So there are three kind of examples, and there are more, but particularly focused around enterprise education, which is a really big target for us at the minute. In one of our big computer science modules, 107, we managed to bring in, again, the one we have brought in sort of a commercialization of technological ideas. So students are asked to think about maybe an app or a project that they'd like to do, and they start that process of how will I commercialize this. So bringing skills like this into the curriculum in collaboration with our academic colleagues who are all brilliant and wonderful, and we love working with them, is some of the examples of how we're not just helping with CVs. That's important too, but we're more than that. We're very much embedded into that teaching and learning experience. And to gain the recognition, Alex, as you mentioned, about fellowship, around Alistair Pilkington Awards, around faculty awards, that's probably one of the proudest things I can say has occurred over the last few years, is to get that recognition in that space. And I'm really proud of the work we're doing, and there's more to come.
Yeah, fantastic. And we've heard about a lot of those projects that you've just spoken about on the podcast already. So we'll put the links to those podcasts in the show notes, particularly that one around life sciences. I know they've been on, and Don's been on as well. Quite a lot of your colleagues have, so we will link to those. So is there anything on the horizon in terms of kind of new projects that you're looking to develop?
Yeah, so I mean, I suppose one of the nice things about being a new director is you come in and you kind of feel that you've got the scope to explore different ideas and build on what was there. Again, I'd say I'm incredibly fortunate to be taking over an incredibly strong team with a very strong journey mapped out as well, and a history of the performance. So it's been wonderful to take over in such a team in such a strong place. So I suppose my thoughts for the future, just bullet point thoughts really. I probably can't answer some of these in much more detail because they're very much in my head at the moment. But the first one, I suppose, is to build on what I would say is our central or our core offer around the Career Studio, which is that obviously that open, accessible drop-in space for our students. Looking at that and thinking, how do we build that to be ready for whatever the future throws at us? It's a really effective space. It works really well. The career coaches are probably the shining light really in terms of what we do. They're brilliant. We're just at the minute recruiting a new set as well, so that's really always an exciting time for the team. But again, we need to ask the question, what are there things we can bring in? How can we work with that space? How can we utilize the space in other ways? The creation and the refinement of our extracurricular events, where, when, how, they can be very resource intensive to deliver. Obviously we need to think about resource, or I need to think about resource in terms of the team's time and ability to deliver things. And the embedded employability, which is a big driver. We're probably, I would say, around 50-60% of our undergraduate students at the minute see or come into contact with an embedded module. That's a bit of an off-the-cuff statistic, but I'd like to build that and grow that and develop a kind of consultancy model that enables us to continue to get these activities out there across the uni. In terms of new things, I would like to develop a series of, I guess, more specific, high-intensity, high-resource support for particular student cohorts. We're aware that, for example, at the minute, the international recruitment is really strong. It's a really exciting time for the university, but of course that leads questions in my head is, how do we support our international students to access and benefit from the careers support that they get within the university. So what if they want to stay within the UK after they finish accessing the graduate visa? How open are employers to that conversation? All of that topic's an interesting one, but also developing some of the knowledge and understanding of where international jobs markets as well. I think we can do that more. So it'll be interesting to develop something around that space. I'd love to really focus on our underrepresented and unheard student groups as well. We know from the stats, and the stats are one thing, and the data tells us this, that some of the students from particular demographics find it more challenging to access graduate level jobs than others. That's just what the numbers say. They say it for us, they say it across the entire piece. So I'd really like to focus on that and bring about an offer that gives that extra support, that extra little bit of help to student groups that may need it, of course, and understanding what the data tells us and understanding what that support could look like is a really exciting thing to look at. And I'd also be interested in postgrads, PGR, PGT world. I'd also like to look at supporting our students from a commuter base as well. So those that are in the region and likely to stay in the region as well. The other thing I suppose that's really important to me is I'd like us to really develop an expertise around opportunities for our students, and just to look at this narrative around what do students do, what can they access while they're with us. You could look at almost a continuum, if you like, from the degree apprenticeships as one end, where you're fully embedded 3-year experience, all the way down to maybe being a member of a society or something like that, or whatever that experience is. What I'd like to do is to look at all of those experiences, whatever they are, and look at maximizing them, helping our students understand that there's lots of different opportunities out there, and regardless of their personal circumstances, because again, everybody's is different around the time that they've got to dedicate to this kind of activity, to try and give all of our students that meaningful experience. And if there's no opportunity outside the curriculum, for understandable reasons for our students, it makes that argument around embedded employability all the more important, I think. Because what we need to do there is bring the employers, bring that authenticity, bring those project briefs into the curriculum, so students that can't access or are unable to access things outside their studies still get the benefits of that. So something that has equity of opportunities for our students, something that frames that whole conversation, global opportunities, hackathons, enterprise challenges, all of these different pieces are important that our students access them, and I want that to be a really open and honest conversation across the institution. And I suppose the last thing, just while I'm flying away here, is I'd really like to develop our enterprise and entrepreneurship offer around spin out, potentially looking at commercialization of our students' ideas, looking at incubator and startup support, working with the Brett Centre, for example, the management school, working across that whole piece to script out a journey as a student who might come into contact with an bit of enterprise education in their curriculum, to then thinking, oh, maybe I could do something in this area. Maybe I do have some ideas that could be interesting to explore. What's my next step? Well, it's to then access maybe some mentoring or coaching or and have designated spaces maybe and resources for our students to access. And who knows where that leads? It's brilliant. It's another fantastic opportunity for our students. And I would say that we are seeing the engagement of that offer absolutely flying upwards at the moment. So this is clearly resonating well with our students. They're clearly a very enterprising bunch at the moment. So that's just a few things. I'll stop waffling on there.
Well, I know I bet it is really increasing. I think entrepreneurship is something that's sort of taking over the country at the moment. I think a lot of, especially young people, are really into that and talking about it. So I'm not surprised, and it's just wonderful to hear how much is on your agenda, how excited you are about it. It's been a great an hour with you, and it's really good to talk to you on these things. This podcast is all about developing people, so it's the Developing Practice podcast, and we always like to finish the podcast in the same way, where we have 3 or 4 take-home tips that the listeners can reflect on in terms of their own practice. So if you could give the listeners out there just a few tips for things that they can think about, what would they be?
Yeah, I mean, really interesting question, and one, it's a really sort of personal question in the sense that all of this is, to me, is a bit of a journey. And, I'm still on that journey, and I don't feel like I'm coming from a position of expertise around leadership and all the rest of it at this point in my career. I suppose all I can say is the things that have helped me have been that authenticity genuineness, being yourself conversation. It's okay to bring all of the bits of you along with you as you move through different roles, and particularly into leadership. You don't have to be this perfectly created, flawless kind of human to be a leader. Actually, the things that are less than perfect sometimes the bits that really mark you out as an individual, and other things that people can get behind as well. So for me, that's like that was a huge realization for me about 6-7 years ago, that I didn't have to be anything. I could just be myself, and that kind of opened that door to me. I would say that one of the things that I found early on, second thing really, in this role, was that there was a definite psychological weight of leadership that is not immediately apparent from the outside looking in. I found in the first couple of weeks of the job, I was like, oh, behind me, what have I done to myself? Because it felt like, although you're maybe not as responsible for delivering the day-to-day activity of the team as much as you were before, you have this oversight now and this ultimate responsibility, the buck stops there kind of feeling. And it's being ready for that, and understanding that it is that time going to weigh on you. It is going to be difficult. But what you need to do is A, be aware of it, and B, have your outlets to be able to cope and work your way through it. And ways that have really helped me is, one, exercise. I mean, that's playing football and things like that's important to me. I know that's not something that everyone would find as enjoyable as me, perhaps. But relationships, having good relationships with the people around you in work and outside of work is really important as well. And having that time just to have space and time away to sort of just reflect, and just give yourself that time and space. So that preparation for that weight is important to be ready for. Maintaining that authenticity of yourself and carrying every bit of you into the new role is really important. And also, I think for me, just finding the time to enjoy and celebrate the job and working with the people that you have within your team. Obviously, I feel very lucky to have the team that I do, the management team I work really closely with, and the team as a whole. It's nice just to go back and speak to everyone, find out what's going on, and remember what it was that actually you enjoy about the job. Why you've ended up in this place because you've been through that delivery journey, you kind of worked your way through things. So go back and listening to the people talking about what they're doing is actually a joy as well. So I don't know how useful that is really, really, Matt, to be honest, but that's something that's helped me. And if there was any students listening, and just as the last student thing, if any advice whatsoever, it would just be do stuff. I say this all the time. Do anything, get involved with stuff, whatever time or resource you have to dedicate to anything. Get out there and enjoy things and meet people and put yourself in different environments. Challenging is fine. Challenge that comfort zone. All of that stuff's really important. And not all of it has to have the obvious cost-benefit impact straight away. Sometimes it's a year or two later you realise that what you did was actually really important and it's really helped you, get to where you want to go. So that kind of do stuff, or as much stuff as you can. It's again another bit of advice I'd do for anyone who's looking to sort of grow and develop within their career, students and staff, I suppose.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ewan. Thanks for your time today.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Alex. It's been a real pleasure talking to you.
Well, it was great to catch up again with you, and he spoke at length about ensuring that he brings his authentic self to his new leadership role, which I thought was really interesting. He felt that it was important to ensure that the traits that enabled him to become the director of the career service are the traits that he takes forward into his new role. And some of those traits that he mentioned were being friendly and approachable and having that sort of strategic vision.
Yeah, I really appreciated what Iwan said about that as well. He spoke about how his team have lots of ideas and potentially lots of solutions to the existing problems across the university. And I really like what he said, that part of his role is to collate and understand these ideas, to make the links between them, and then help his team to implement the best ones. Well, there was lots in that podcast that you may well want to go away and think about. If you'd like to take your thinking further, we've added some further resources to the website on a specific podcast reading list that you can access at liverpool.ac.uk/the-academy/podcast. Also, we love to hear what you think about each episode, so please do tweet us at LiveUniAcademy, and you can also find us at eLearnerMatt or at Alexandra_Owen on Twitter.
And we're really grateful for those who have taken the time to either rate or review our show in your podcast provider's app. So if you haven't done so already, please do take the time to review our show, or even better, simply share the episode with friends and colleagues on your social media. Bye for now.